President Trump's criticism of professional athletes is now starting a conversation that's extending beyond the sports world. The hashtag Take a Knee, now the top trending topic on Twitter as supporters of those athletes as well as those who back the president are weighing in. So let's talk about it. CNN political commentators Mark Lamont Hill and Ben Ferguson are with us this morning. The president, Ben, has tweeted about this anthem protest a half dozen times over the last 24 hours, not once about the 3 million people in Puerto Rico who have no clean running water. But you agree with the president. Tell us why.
Well, first, I think it's very clear that the U.S. government is very much involved, FEMA and others, when it comes to those in Puerto Rico. He did the same thing in Florida. I think you can tweet about a social issue and also focus on natural disasters, which the president's been able to do in Florida as well as in Texas. I think the president has hit a chord here with a lot of Americans that have a real problem with the NFL right now. This is the same league that refused the Dallas Cowboys' request to honor the police officers that were slaughtered in Dallas and said, sorry, you cannot put a little decal on the back of your helmet for the game on Sunday after those police officers were murdered. Yet at the same time, the NFL allows their players to disrespect the flag of the United States of America and everyone who has protected and served this country. I think you're going to see a big backlash with ratings here, Victor. I think people are underestimating the power of people who have a remote control on this Sunday who are going to say, you know what? I'm not going to support a league that literally allows their employees, and this is not an issue, I want to make this clear because people have been confusing this. You have the right to protest. You have the right to do this. But when you work for a company has a right to say that you can or cannot do this during work hours. No one is trying to take away these players' rights to do this. I think the NFL, it's an embarrassment that they are supporting disrespecting this country, all races who have protected and defend this country, and every race in this country has had someone die for this country serving in our military, and it's sad.
Let's go to Mark.
Well, you know, I think this, again, as Ben said, this is not a question of First Amendment. I'm a little surprised that Ben has this position around Donald Trump weighing in on Twitter. When President Obama weighed in on the Skip Gates controversy, when a Harvard professor was arrested outside of his home, and the president said that the police behaved stupidly, Ben and others said that that a president shouldn't be weighing in on these private matters, that there are bigger fish to fry. I would imagine, given North Korea, given Puerto Rico, given these other things, Donald Trump wouldn't be obsessed with this topic. I don't have an issue with him mentioning it, but he seems to be obsessed with the topic and taunting players and really weighing in on private matters. The other thing here, though, is, again, Ben's right. It's not about First Amendment. They have a right to do it. But I don't see it as disrespectful to the country, disrespectful to soldiers, disrespectful to people who served. If anything, it's an affirmation of the freedoms for which they allegedly fought. That is to say, we are here to fight for freedom and justice. Colin Kaepernick stood up or kneeled and said, hey, there is not freedom and justice in this country for all people. The vulnerable are under attack. There's state violence, and we need to do something about it. And I think that the players standing in solidarity with him is a necessary thing. I hope that every NFL player this Sunday takes a knee to stand up and push back. And there is a huge difference, Ben, between an entire team taking a position by putting a decal on their helmet and individual players exercising their rights here to express their political conscience. People act as if people. Let me just finish this point.
Hold on. Finish, Mark, quickly, please.
People act as if politics is injected into the NFL the moment you take a knee. Politics happens the moment you make all the players stand for the flag. Politics happens the moment you reaffirm wars of aggression by saluting the military at halftime. It's all political. It's just a question of what politics you support.
It's not political. First of all, it's not political to support the country that you're a citizen of and you live in, and to honor those who've fallen to protect and defend this country. The second point that I have to make here that is just, I can't believe we're even having this discussion, is the fact that these players...
I can't believe we're having the discussion either, because there's so many other things that the president probably could be tweeting about, like the people in Puerto Rico, his health care bill, North Korea. But he started his day with these two statements about athletes who are protesting. But go ahead.
And you can tweet about something about athletes. This is a hot button issue. That's the reason why we're having this discussion right now.
It's a hot button issue. This has been going on for more than a year. The president just injected this in Alabama to help Luther Strange.
I think he talked about it in Alabama because I think he sees that there is literally starting to be more and more cool factor around disrespecting this country and the flag and those that protect it. That's what a lot of people that are saying around the country, Victor. And there's one other thing here. If these players actually do believe in what they're saying right now, then maybe they should do a couple of basic things. For example, Colin Kaepernick didn't even vote in the last election and isn't even registered to vote. How many of these players walk out there because the camera is on them and they see a moment to be in the limelight and they see a moment to jump on Twitter, who didn't even vote in the election? If you want me to respect your opinion, then actually back it up with being a registered voter, of voting against Donald Trump. How many of these guys taking a knee didn't even vote against Donald Trump?
CNN has also reported on President Trump's spotty voting record, but that has never stopped him from opining about everything under the sun. Mark, let me come back to you.
He's registered.
Does this now become solely about the president today, that it dilutes the initial reason that these athletes took a knee?
No, I think quite the opposite. It's a galvanizing effort. And I gotta just respond to that real quick. Ben says, yeah, but Donald Trump's registered though. Ben's point was that you have to vote to matter, and Donald Trump didn't vote. So I don't know how somehow being registered but not voting.
He's voted quite a few times in his life. Let's not act like he hasn't.
He's voted quite a few times in his life. He's 71.
Yeah, and Colin isn't even registered. Think about that. It's a little ridiculous.
Ben, just allow me to answer uninterrupted for a moment. There are many ways to protest this country. I don't want to reinforce subtly this narrative that these players aren't doing anything. These players, particularly Colin Kaepernick, has donated over $1 million. He works on causes behind the scenes and in front of the camera. And to suggest that it's somehow an act of grandstanding and self-interest to do what Colin Kaepernick has done, to me, borders on absurd. His entire career stands in jeopardy, or it stands in the balance now because of the choices he's made. So it's not as if this is some career-affirming move to do. If anything,
let me finish from a guaranteed contract.
Let him finish. Let him finish. Mark, go ahead and finish, please.
Okay. First of all, Ben, again, these are half truths. Even the San Francisco 49ers acknowledged that he walked away from that contract. If he had not opted out, they would have released him anyway. It was obviously a strategic move by the team. He didn't just quit the NFL. That's just not true, and you know that as well, I think, Ben, because you know a lot about football.
Guaranteed cash.
Ben, let me ask you this question. Let me ask you this. You say that the president's bringing this up because it's a hot topic and it's becoming, as you say, cool to disrespect the country. But is the president not bringing this up because you go to a rally, you have to say something? He can't say, hey, look at my wall. He can't say, boy, we've really repealed Obamacare and the infrastructure bill is moving along and the tax reform bill is moving along, that this is just the president shouting squirrel because some of his agenda items are suffering.
I don't think so. I think this is an issue that he is seeing. This, look, you even said it earlier, Victor. This has been going on now for what, a year, over a year now?
And the president now brings it back up randomly in Alabama.
It's not randomly. When you have more and more players who continue to kneel on Sundays, and when you talk about, when you're at a campaign rally and you're talking about issues and you're talking about the state of this country, a prime example of the state of the country right now is how many people are growing up and being taught that all of a sudden it's somehow cool to be un-American or diss this country or be ashamed of this country.
And
Mark, that's shameful.
We got to wrap it there. Thank you very much. I'm up against the clock. We got to get to the 8 o'clock hour. Gentlemen, thank you so much.
To provide hurricane relief money for Texas and to fund the government for another 90 days. Is this the beginning of a beautiful friendship or a one-time only moment in a gridlocked Washington? Well, joining me now is House Democratic Leader Nancy Pelosi. Welcome back to Meet the Press.
Well, good morning. My pleasure to be here.
Before I get to the business side of Washington, look, you represent San Francisco, the Golden State Warriors, Steph Curry at the center of this, along with Colin Kaepernick, the former San Francisco 49er. I know this is more high topic of mind, perhaps, in your district. I imagine I know where you are and on the president's comments on this. What would you like him to try to do if you think he would do it?
I'd like him to do what he said he would do when he ran and when he was inaugurated, to bring people together. He should see this as an opportunity. Somebody, Colin Kaepernick doing what he did, says this flag enables me to do this. This national anthem enables me to do this. This is about freedom of expression. Instead of resorting to what he is doing now, it's unfortunate. I think he was ill-advised, if advised at all, to go down this path. Sports have always been a great unifier. I've always said sports and the arts will bring America together. It's where we put our differences aside. Let's not have the president of the United States do anything but bring people together.
Do you think, regardless of whether you think it's the right politics, do you see the political strategy in this?
Well, you gave a list of the examples of how the president has been, shall we say, exploitive of certain divisions in our country when it comes to comes to race. I would hope that he would transition from that and understand that he has a different responsibility than feeding red meat to his base. He has unclean hands when it comes to this discussion, too, because of what he did after Charlottesville and the other examples that you gave.
What do you say to the activist on the left, the person who really is angry at President Trump, who says, don't work with him at all? You're working with him. Does this ever give you pause?
Well, let me just say this. I, as Speaker and as Minority Leader first, and then as Speaker, worked very closely with President Bush. What could be worse than taking us into the war in Iraq on the basis of a false premise? Isn't that one of the worst things that's ever happened in our country? And yet, when we could work with him on the biggest energy bill in the history of our country, helping with refundable tax credits for poor families, PEPFAR, AIDS drugs, to save lives throughout the world. There's a long list of things we did working together, even though I drastically disagreed with him on the war in Iraq.
So none of this gives you pause about working with President Trump?
It's one by one. It's one issue at a time. And we don't know what the next issue might be where we can find common ground. I do believe as leaders we have as an advocate, I'd probably be saying the same thing. As a leader, we have a responsibility to try to find common ground, stand our ground where we can't. But we have important challenges in our country that we have to address. And if we can find that path, I think we should do that.
I want to get into the details of the promise that you feel like you extracted from him on DACA.
Yes.
Tell me what that promise is. What is this compromise bill going to look like in your view?
Well, we haven't seen the whole bill, but what the piece of it on immigrant, Chuck Schumer, Leader Schumer and I.
Yeah, everybody's calling each other by first names these days, right? Anyway, go ahead.
Well, let me respectfully call him Leader Chuck Schumer. I'm so proud of his leadership. What we agreed with the president on was that the basic bill would be the DREAM Act. This is a bill introduced and has nearly 200 co-sponsors by Congresswoman Lucille Roybal Allard. It is a bill that we will take forward, and it is the bill that we all support. What was to be determined was if and what there would be in terms of border security. But the essence of the bill was what the president committed, and that's what we trust him to honor.
He committed to a pathway to citizenship for these DACA recipients.
He committed to, now, mind you, the pathway to citizenship is an earned pathway that is way down the road.
Right, but some people think there should be no path at all, that it permanently cut off. You believe the president agreed to a pathway to citizenship with this DREAM Act? That is what is contained in the DREAM Act, yes. And you think he will keep his word on this?
That's what he said.
What makes you trust him?
Well, we'll see.
So you're not sure?
We'll see now, won't we? Well, no, I trust him on it. I'm concerned about what he might come up with in terms of border security and the rest of that. But we have said no wall. The DREAM Act, no wall. And as long as we understand it's the DREAM Act and no wall, what else do you have to say?
Let me ask you something. Speaking of the wall, the president on Friday started describing the wall as the following. It's not, there's some parts of it that are already there. There are sometimes there'll be natural barriers. You don't need a full wall. And oh, by the way, it's going to be see-through. I could tell you gave me that definition. I'd say, oh, that's a fence. Does that make you feel better now about where he's going with the wall, that he's outlining a fence that actually won't be the entire 2,000 miles?
No, it doesn't. But I'm more concerned about what they do in terms of enforcement. You know, we've said to them, when we protect the dreamers, we don't use them as a target to go after their parents. So we want to say that the prosecutorial discretion that you might use in terms of deportation does not use status as immigration status as a crime. And that if somebody commits a felony or this or that, then you can do it. So those are the issues that are more of a concern than his backing off of a wall. We're not supporting a wall.
Okay. If this DACA deal does happen the way you describe it, within the vicinity of their definition, what is the next item you think is realistic that you could work with the president on?
Within the immigration
No,
piece?
the next, any piece. What's the next? Is it health care? Is it tax reform? Is there some other thing? Is it infrastructure? What is next that you would be willing to
I would say
sit down with the president? It is
infrastructure, right from the start. Infrastructure has never been a partisan issue. We've always worked together. We've worked regionally, in terms of people coming together in regions for different things. And it is absolutely necessary. It would create good paying jobs every place in the country for everyone, and we need infrastructure improvement in that way. He's talked about it during the campaign. We don't want it to be a tax break for some friends at the disguised as an infrastructure
But that's
bill.
something you're going to the table with him on this to at least see how it
I
starts.
think we have a great deal of common ground there.
DACA before the end of the calendar year? DACA before Christmas?
We have to.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe so. We have that path. I would like to see it within the next few weeks, but certainly before we leave.
All right. House Democratic Leader Nancy Pelosi, thanks for coming in.
My pleasure.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
When we come back, the national anthem has been played at the first NFL game of the day. It's in London, by the way.